Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all the witnesses for being here today and for your candor. I appreciate that very much. And it's always I'm got to be even-handed, in terms of all the branches are wonderful. But I have to say, having grown up in an Air Force family, it's great to see you all here today. Grew up on Davis-Monthan Air Force Base and Tucson. I have a question for General Mueller, and also I think Generals Clark and Haddad might want to comment on this. I'm sure you all agree that the Air Force Reserve and the Air National Guard are very critical and complementary and cost-effective capabilities to our Air Force. In Tucson, just across the district line is the 162nd Fighter Wing of the Air National Guard. While my neighbor really has them in his district, I claim them, as did Congresswoman Giffords before me. They're an incredible unit. They train foreign pilots. 22 allied forces come there to train in F-16s, and they do an amazing job. I'm concerned about the future for them, for all of our Air Guard and our reserves, because they're so critical, as we know, in the two wars that we've fought over the last decade or so. We've deployed more reserve and Guard members than perhaps we ever expected. So I want to ask a question about the future of the Guard and of the reserves. We have, for example, in terms of trying to hold on to aircraft that are aging, done some work. And a good example is the 355th Fighter Wing of the 355th Wing at Davis-Monthan of the Air Force. We've had to re-wing the A-10s. I mean, they're 30-year-old planes, but they're still incredible planes. They're doing a wonderful job. But they're 30 years in service. So as we think about where we're going with the Guard and Reserve, could you speak to this issue? What are the Air Force's priorities to ensure that the Guard and Reserve fleets are prepared to support the total force, particularly as we think about the F-16 being phased out, presumably being replaced by the F-35. So as we look at these aging aircraft, certainly the A-10 is the most aging of the fighters that we have in the air now. What are the priorities for the Air Guard and for the Reserve as we think about maintaining their capability and their aircraft going forward?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. Sir, the question itself is very important to our Air Force. As we look out not just to 10 years, but if we look to the foreseeable future, the way that I think all of us look at our Air Force, it is a total force in every way. All three of the components working together will be the key to our success to meet any future challenge. With that in mind, we have a total force task force that is led by three two-star generals, one from each of the components, that is literally looking exactly at the questions that you've asked, specifically focused on what capabilities, what composition and mix does the Air Force require across the total force from the three components in order to ensure that we can meet the defense strategic guidance and the national security requirements of the future. We are looking exactly at those questions, and it covers the broad range of policies, personnel requirements, force structure, and how do we take the unique advantages that come from the reserve components, both the Air National Guard and the Air Force Reserve, and ensure that they mesh with the unique capabilities of the active duty to ensure that we can cover the full spectrum of our responsibilities for the future.
Could I just follow up before anyone else comments? And that is, this task force has a timeline, I assume, is when they're going to report back with recommendations. Can you share any information about that?
Yes, sir. It is. It was set up as a 6 to 7 month task force with recommendations to the Secretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff. I believe that the task force originally was designed to report out in October. We've slipped that slightly only because as they got started, they found that they started with a comprehensive review, and to really take a good look at what has gone on before, both from a report standpoint, from an analysis standpoint, and to really come to a general agreement amongst the components on what actually is. So that's That's a long answer. I think November, early December, the task force will report out on its findings.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, I know I'm running out of time. I might suggest that we ask for a report when it's appropriate from that task force's recommendations, having gone to the Secretary. I think it's really important that we're kept current on this. I agree with other members who have said I'm really dismayed about where we are putting our Air Force and all of our military branches with sequestration. We have to come to terms with it. Hopefully that report will help us do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.